Welcome back. Today we're tackling a topic that honestly can make or break a design studio. It's not the glamour of design, but the raw discipline of it. We're talking about time.
Specifically, how you manage it. We're doing a deep dive into the architectural records and professional practices of King-Kambuf's architecture design studios, and the issue is project management, PjM.
And we're zeroing in on the absolute heart of PjM, which is schedules. We're talking Gantt charts, milestones, and the often feared critical path method.
Right.
I think we've all been on that project, the one that starts with this beautiful optimistic timeline on a spreadsheet,
Oh, yeah.
and then reality hits.
Yeah.
The vendor is late, the city throws a wrench in the works, the client changes their mind,
Yeah.
and that beautiful timeline just dissolves into, well, panic.
It happens all the time.
So our mission today is to give you the tools to move beyond that hopeful list of dates. We want to help you build a timeline that you can actually defend, that you can track, and that you can update when things inevitably go wrong.
And if you can do that, you're not just managing a schedule. You're mastering project work planning, project execution, and even quality control. It's really the nexus of everything.
It's the core of it all.
It is. And that mastery, it really starts with one fundamental idea. You have to realize you can't talk about time the same way to everyone.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, the conversation you have with your client about the final completion date is a totally different language from the one you have with your structural engineer about steel fabrication lead times.
Okay, so different stakeholders need different levels of detail, different languages.
Exactly. An architect needs to be fluent in 3 distinct scheduling languages. Each one serves a very specific, very critical purpose for a unique audience.
I like that framing, the 3 languages of time. So if you're out there getting ready for a big kickoff meeting or just trying to get a handle on your current project, this is essential.
It's your foundation.
All right, well, let's define them. What are the 3 schedule languages?
The milestone schedule, the Gantt chart, and the critical path method, or CPM.
Perfect. Let's start with the one everyone sees, the one that gets put into contracts, the milestone schedule. You call it the client promise.
That's exactly what it is. It's the high-level, client-facing, one-page promise. Its entire purpose is clarity and simplicity.
So this is for the people who don't need to know about every single drawing being produced.
Right. It's for the owners, the lenders, the executives. They just need to know the big moments. When does the check need to be written? When is the next major contractual event?
So this is what you'd see as an exhibit in the contract. We're talking about those really specific, legally meaningful dates. Give us a few examples.
We're talking about the big ones. SD complete, permit submitted, CD issue. Then you've got your bid date, the start of construction, which we call NTP, or notice to proceed.
And the big one.
And the big one, of course, substantial completion. That's the finish line. Those are the dates tied to financing, to move-in planning, to the whole business case for the project.
The clarity is great. I get that. But you also said this schedule is dangerous. I want to unpack that. Why is the simplicity of the milestone schedule a risk?
Because it creates this profound illusion of flexibility. It's a huge trap.
How so?
A client looks at this clean list of 5 or 6 dates, and they see the white space between them. And they think, well, look at all that time between the bid and the notice to proceed. Surely we can just squeeze that by 2 weeks.
Right. They don't see the complexity hidden in that white space.
Not at all. They don't see the 400 microtasks, the consultant reviews, the internal quality control checks, the submittal periods, all the actual work that has to happen to connect those 2 milestones. They just see a gap on a page and assume it's empty.
So the lack of detail is perceived as a lack of work. And if they suddenly say, hey, let's move that permit date up by a month, they have no concept of the chaos that unleashes.
Exactly. They don't realize that for us to do that, we might have to completely resequence our consultants, skip a critical quality check, or put 3 more people on the job, which has a huge fee implication. It creates tension right at the start.
And as the architect, you have to defend the logic of that schedule.
Yeah.
But you can't do it with just the milestone list. You need to pull back the curtain.
You have to. And that brings us right to the second language. The tool you use to manage all that hidden complexity day to day, the Gantt chart. This is the daily work plan.
Okay, so if the milestone schedule is the flight itinerary, New York to London, departs at 8, arrives at 7, the Gantt chart is the pilot's pre-flight checklist and the air traffic control plan.
That's a great analogy. It's the operational manual. This is where the project manager lives and breathes. The Gantt chart translates those high-level milestones into actual, tangible tasks with durations and owners.
So it's a visual tool. We're talking about the classic bar chart.
The horizontal bar chart, yeah.
Hmm.
It shows you how long each task takes, where they overlap, what depends on what. It's the tool you use for your internal team meetings and your consultant coordination calls.
So what are some of the key things we're tracking on a professional Gantt chart that you would never see on that simple milestone list?
Oh, everything. I mean, everything that controls the flow of information. You're tracking specific project deliverables broken down into manageable chunks. We'll talk about a work breakdown structure or WBS later.
Okay.
You're tracking every single consultant due date. When does the structural engineer have to lock in the column grid? When is the MEP engineer giving us final equipment loads? All of that.
And internal stuff, too.
Absolutely. Internal reviews, those red line sessions, and maybe most importantly, you're tracking the critical decision points required from the owner.
Hmm.
We need your sign-off on the exterior material by this date, or the whole window package schedule slips.
The visualization is what makes it so powerful, right? You look at it and immediately see, uh-oh, my two senior designers are supposed to be working on two huge things at the same time next week.
That's the resource allocation piece. It's critical for project cost management, for PCM. You see that conflict coming before it happens. You see that your team's deadline for the core and shell drawings is the exact same day the structural engineer's final calculations are due.
And you know your team needs to review those calculations.
Right. So you have a resource conflict. The Gantt chart lets you see that a month out, not the day before. You can shift staff, you can plan for overtime, you can manage your fee and your hours against the actual plan before it becomes a fire you have to put out.
So the God tells us the what, the who, and for how long. But it still has a limit. It shows task A takes 5 days and task B, which comes after, also takes 5 days. But if task A is a day late, the Gantt chart doesn't necessarily scream project emergency.
Not automatically, no. The Gantt is descriptive. It shows you the plan. It's a fantastic tool, but it doesn't inherently analyze the consequences of a slip. For that, you need the third language.
The critical path method, CPM.
Correct. This is where we move from descriptive to prescriptive. CPM is not just about duration, it's about dependency. It is a network of pure logic that reveals the project's sort of unchangeable physics, the things you simply cannot defy.
The source material we're looking at makes a really important point here. It says for managers, CPM isn't about being a math genius. It's about making the right managerial decisions once the math shows you the reality.
That is the key takeaway. It's a decision-making tool. And it gives you 3 non-negotiable insights that you can't get anywhere else.
Okay, what are they?
First, it identifies what absolutely positively cannot slip. Not by a day, not by an hour. That is the critical path.
The dominoes that knock over the whole project if one is late.
Precisely. Second, it identifies what can slip a little. This is called float. It's your cushion. It's your flexibility. It's precious. And third, and this is the most powerful part for a manager, it tells you where to focus your energy if you're behind schedule. It shows you the only tasks that are worth spending extra money on to speed up or crash to get back on track.
So in other words, if you don't know your critical path, you're basically flying blind when a problem hits. You might throw a ton of money and overtime at speeding up a task that actually has a week of float.
And you've wasted all that money and effort because the project finish date doesn't change one bit. You solved the wrong problem.
It's the ultimate risk map.
It is.
Yeah.
So you have these 3 tools and they work together. Milestone is your contract, your promise, Gantt is your operational plan, and CPM is your risk map.
Contract plan and risk map. That framework alone is huge. It shows why just having one single project timeline is almost guaranteed to fail. It's not a document, it's a whole hierarchy of tools.
Exactly. And to make those tools work, you have to understand the messy reality of what you're scheduling, which is that a project isn't one simple line of tasks. From proposal to closeout, a project is really like 5 different highways, all running in parallel. We call them the 5 parallel lanes of project flow.
5 lanes, all moving at different speeds, but all interdependent. That sounds complex.
It is. It's why scheduling is so hard. These lanes represent different stakeholders, different priorities, different liabilities. A delay in, say, the city permit lane doesn't mean your design team stops working, but it has a massive impact on what they should be working on.
So a good schedule doesn't just show the tasks in each lane, it has to show the connections.
It must show the handoffs. If you don't explicitly schedule the handoff points between these lanes, you're not managing one project. You're just watching 5 separate, disconnected efforts slowly crash into each other.
Okay, this is critical. Let's break down the 5 lanes. Give us some concrete examples for each.
Lane number 1 is the most obvious. The design deliverables lane. This is our work. The architect's output, schematic design, DD, CDs, responding to RFIs and CA. This is our factory floor.
Makes sense.
Lane 2, the owner decisions lane. This is where the client has control. Approving the program, signing off on the floor plan, picking the expensive curtain wall system, approving budget changes. If this lane gets a flat tire, our design lane can't move forward with any certainty.
Okay, that's a big one. What's lane 3?
The consultant coordination lane, the technical backbone of the project.
Mm-hmm.
This is your structural engineer, your MEP, your civil, your envelope consultant. They have their own deliverables that are critical inputs for our design work. We can't finish our drawings until they finish their calculations.
Got it. Lane 4.
The authority lane. This is everything to do with the city, the county, the planning department. Zoning approvals, entitlements, the actual plan check review time, inspections, and finally, the certificate of occupancy. These are external forces. We can't control their timeline, only the quality of what we submit to them.
And these timelines are often non-negotiable. The city's review period is the city's review period.
Exactly. And finally, lane 5 is the procurement and construction lane. This starts earlier than people think. Is identifying long lead items like special equipment or materials, then the bid period itself, reviewing submittals during construction, fabrication times, installation, all the way to commissioning.
That's a fantastic breakdown because it immediately highlights a huge common trap. We, as architects, tend to focus obsessively on our own lane, the design deliverables lane. We see a deadline like DD set due, and we think that's the whole story.
And that's what I call the DD trap. The DD set submission isn't just a date on our calendar, it's a trigger, it's a handoff.
What do you mean by a trigger?
Its completion is supposed to trigger mandatory tasks in all the other lanes. It should trigger a formal cost estimate in the procurement lane. It should trigger the final system selections in the consultant lane. And critically, it requires the owner's signature a task in the owner decisions lane to lock in the design so we can start construction documents on a stable foundation.
And if those downstream handoffs aren't scheduled and don't happen,
then that DD set you just issued is basically worthless. It's a snapshot in time that's about to change, and you're building the next phase of the project on quicksand.
So a competent project manager knows a milestone isn't just a finish line for one task, it's the starting gun for 3 others.
That is the essence of it. So you've got these 5 chaotic lanes. To manage them, you need a toolkit, a set of field-tested methods to bring some order to the chaos.
Let's talk about that toolkit. First up is the work breakdown structure, or WBS. How does this help?
WBS is just a fancy term for breaking big, vague phases into small, manageable packages. Instead of having one task on your Gantt chart that says, design development phase 8 weeks.
Which tells you nothing about your actual progress until week 8.
Exactly. You break it down. Your DD phase becomes maybe 10 WBS packages, envelope concept, core and lobby planning, MEP basis of design narrative, updated code analysis, outline specifications.
So you can actually track real progress. You can see that you're 100% done with the core planning, but only 20% done with the envelope. It gives you a much clearer picture.
A much clearer picture, and it ensures the team is focused on the right things, on coordinated documents and key decisions, not just on producing drawings in a vacuum.
So let's take a more complex example. What would a WBS for the CD phase of, say, a high-rise look like?
Oh, for CDs, it has to be really granular. Your packages would be things like code and life safety sheets finalization, exterior envelope, waterproofing details, MEP clash detection and resolution, that's a big one, and a handoff from the consultant lane.
Okay.
You'd have structural superstructure document set. You'd have specifications, final draft, and alignment with drawings, which is a crucial quality control step. And finally, permit set assembly and AHJ checklist completion. That's the handoff to the authority lane.
By defining it that way, you can assign an owner to each package and track it. And that naturally leads to the next tool in the kit, milestone reviews or QC gates.
Yes. These have to be actual scheduled tasks. They are not informal, hey, take a look at this. They are planned, structured reviews. Your 30, 60, 90% reviews. There are red line storms. They need time, and they need the right people in the room.
Why is it so important to schedule QC as its own task with its own duration? Why not just say, we'll check it before we send it out?
Because when the schedule gets tight, and it always gets tight, the first thing people want to cut is QC time.
Of course.
But skipping that 90% interdisciplinary clash check to save 3 days is almost a guarantee that you're going to spend 3 weeks dealing with RFIs and change orders in the field. The schedule has to protect the time for quality control. It's non-negotiable.
And what about the inevitable problem? The client delay. How do we manage that professionally?
With the decision log, it has to be tied directly to dates. This is your professional shield. It's a simple log that records the what, the who, and the when for every required owner decision.
So if you needed the final sign-off on the flooring material by May 1st, and the owner emails it to you on May 8th?
The log documents a 7-day delay in the owner decisions lane, and you immediately issue a notice saying, this 7-day delay in receiving this decision will result in a corresponding 7-day slip to the interior finishes package.
You're making the cause and effect relationship crystal clear. It's not some mysterious delay anymore. It's traceable to a specific event.
Right. And that documentation is what allows you to justify a claim for added services if that delay forces your team to redo work or to accelerate later on to make up the time. It's about protecting the firm.
Okay, so that's for the big picture. What about keeping the team focused week to week?
For that, you use look-ahead planning. The full Gantt chart can be overwhelming. A 2-year project plan is too much to look at every Monday morning, so you use a rolling 2 to 4 week look ahead.
So it's a zoomed-in view.
Exactly. At the weekly team meeting, you're not talking about the final move-in date. You're talking about, did we accomplish the 3 things we said we would in the last 2 weeks? And what are the specific 5 things we must accomplish in the next 2 weeks to stay on track? It maintains focus. It maintains momentum.
All of these tools really boil down to one core requirement of PjM maintaining baselines and documentation.
It's the standard of care. A firm like KING-KAMBUF has to establish a baseline schedule at the very beginning of the project. That's the original truth. Then, when things change, and they always do, you perform regular updates. Monthly, sometimes bi-weekly.
And those updates aren't just about changing the dates.
No. They have to document 4 things. Progress made, the changes that occurred, the reason for the change, and the specific impact of that change on the project.
This rigor is what separates the pros from the amateurs. It's what allows you to answer the critical questions. If the consultant is late, what happens to the contractual milestone? And which task on the critical path is now in jeopardy?
The whole system is connected. You can't just do one part. And if you ignore the documentation, all the brilliant planning in the world won't help you when a conflict arises.
Right, that's the theory. Let's see how this all holds up under pressure. Let's get into the case study.
Let's do it.
So we're diving into a very specific project scenario. This is the pressure test, where all this PjM logic has to be applied in real time.
Okay, the project is a 4-story ambulatory clinic. It's an urban infill site on the West Coast, which usually means a tough jurisdiction, and it has a complex imaging suite inside.
And there are some serious constraints right from the start.
2 big ones. First, we know the plan check cycle in this city is incredibly strict. They will reject incomplete submittals without a second thought. Second, there's public funding involved, and that funding is contractually tied to hitting the permit issuance date. No permit, no money.
And the delivery method is design, bid, build, but with a twist.
A critical twist. The owner wants to pre-purchase the long-lead imaging equipment, so that procurement lane is running hot much earlier than usual, right in the middle of our CD phase.
Okay, the stage is set,
Yeah.
and then the crisis hits, right at 60% CDs.
The worst possible time. It's a double whammy. First, the imaging vendor, the one whose equipment is being pre-purchased, suddenly changes their specs. The new machine needs more radiation shielding, a different room layout. It's a significant design change.
Which impacts structural, MEP, everything.
Everything. At the exact same moment, the city planning department announces a brand new mandatory 4-week backlog for processing any new permit submittals.
Oof. A scope change from the inside and a delay from the outside colliding. And then you get the phone call from the owner.
And they say the thing they always say, this is a disaster. We can't miss that funding milestone. Just submit the permit set on time as planned, and we'll fix the imaging suite stuff later in an addendum.
And just saying yes to that is a huge mistake.
It's a massive standard of care violation. Your job at that moment is not to be an order taker. It's to be a risk consultant.
Okay, so let's walk through the competent PjM logic. Step 1, identify the schedule critical impacts. What does that mean in practice? Where do you even start?
You start by figuring out the physics of the problem. You ignore the owner's panic for a minute and ask the real questions. Is the imaging redesign on the critical path to getting the permit accepted? Not just submitted, but accepted by the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction.
Because you know they're rejecting incomplete sets.
Exactly. So you immediately get on the phone with your radiation consultant, your structural engineer, your MEP engineer. You have to quantify the impact. Do these changes affect the life safety plans? Do they change the core structural loads? If the answer is yes, then submitting an incomplete set isn't an option. It will be rejected, and you'll be hit with that 4-week delay anyway, plus the time it takes to resubmit.
So you define the AHJ's risk tolerance first, not the client's wishful thinking.
Always. Once you've quantified the change, let's say you determine it will take 15 working days of focused redesign to get it right. You move to step 2.
Which is?
You issue a formal schedule impact memo. And in that memo, you provide options, each with clearly stated consequences. This is so important. You're transferring the decision and the ownership of the risk back to the owner.
Let's hear the options. What are the sensible paths you can offer the client?
Option A is what we call protect the permit date via a deferred submittal. You offer to submit the current set on time, but you formally exclude the imaging suite. You list it as a deferred submittal package.
What are the consequences of that?
The good news is you might hit the funding milestone. The bad news is it only works if the AHJ even allows complex systems to be deferred. And it pushes a huge amount of coordination risk and costs downstream into construction. It's a gamble.
Okay, what's option B?
Option B is calculated delay to maintain completeness. You tell the owner, to do this right and guarantee a first-pass acceptance, we need to shift the submission date by X weeks. In this case, it's the 15 days for redesign plus the 4-week AHJ backlog.
The consequence there is obvious.
It's painful but honest. The funding milestone will be missed. The owner will have to go renegotiate. But you are minimizing the risk of a catastrophic rejection and an even longer resubmittal delay.
Is there a third way?
Sometimes. Option C could be split packages or a phased permit. You ask the AHJ if you can permit the core and shell of the building separately from the interior fit-out of the imaging suite. The consequence is that it allows the contractor to start early on foundations, but it adds a ton of coordination complexity and usually increases the overall project cost.
I love this approach because the architect isn't the one deciding to delay the project. You're simply framing the reality and defining the cost and risk associated with each choice.
Which leads directly to step 3, which is you lock the decision in. Whatever option the owner chooses, it gets recorded in the decision log. The redesign work is formally defined as an added service. The baseline schedule is officially updated. You cannot proceed based on a verbal, okay, let's go with B. It has to be documented.
So once the owner picks option B, the calculated delay, the work isn't over. Now your team has to figure out how to recover as much time as possible. You have to have an intelligent recovery strategy.
Right, and intelligent is the key word. No fantasy-based optimism. You look for real opportunities. First, you take every WBS package that was not affected by the change and you accelerate it to 100% complete. Get the site plans done, get the standard details QC'd. Bank that progress.
And for the imaging suite itself.
You implement what we discussed earlier. You crash that part of the schedule. You plan a highly focused imaging sprint. You get the architect, the radiation consultant, the structural and MEP engineers in a room for 3 straight days. A mandatory workshop to solve the problem. It costs more in the short term, but it eliminates weeks of back and forth emails.
That makes sense. What's another practical strategy here?
This is one people always forget. You explicitly schedule a permit resubmittal window. Don't just hope you get it accepted on the first try, assume you'll get comments back. So you add a 10-day task for your team to respond and resubmit. Plus, you factor in the city's second review cycle time.
So if you get lucky and it's accepted the first time, that scheduled time just becomes float. It becomes a buffer.
It becomes a gift. But if you don't plan for it, you're managing without a safety net.
And the final piece of this is protecting that QC time, no matter how much pressure you're under.
It's more important than ever. When a schedule is compressed, the likelihood of errors goes up, not down. Cutting your final quality check to meet a new compressed date is basically knowingly shipping a defective product. You schedule the red line time, you schedule the clash check. It is non-compressible.
The big lesson from this case study seems to be that PjM is really about managing dependencies under pressure and documenting every single move.
That's it. And all of that management is justified by the math that underpins it all, the critical path method.
Perfect. Let's pull back that final curtain and get into the CPM deep dive.
All right, let's get into the logic of it. CPM is what gives us the mathematical proof for all those gut-level managerial decisions we just talked about. We're going to use the specific example from the source material to make this really tangible.
Okay, so for everyone listening, try to visualize this. We're drawing a network diagram, a series of tasks where arrows show that one task can't start until another is finished. We have a main path, then it splits into 2 parallel branches, and then they have to merge back together at the end.
And each task has a specific duration in days. Let's list them out. Task A, programming, takes 2 days. B, schematic design, takes 5 days. C, owner SD approval, takes 2 days.
Okay, so A, B, and C happen one after the other. That's simple enough. Then after C is done, the work splits.
Right. We have a design track, which is Task D, design development, for 6 days, followed by Task F, construction docs, for 8 days.
And at the same time, there's a parallel procurement track. Task E, long lead equipment selections, takes 7 days, followed by Task G, the procurement release package, which takes 2 days.
Exactly, and both of those tracks have to be complete before we can do the final task, Task H, permit submission, which takes 1 day.
Got it. So now we do what's called the forward pass. We're going to calculate the earliest start and earliest finish for every single task, assuming everything goes perfectly.
Hi.
We start the project on day 0.
Okay, let's do it. Task A starts at 0, finishes at the end of day 2. Task B starts on day 2, finishes at the end of day 7. Task C starts on day 7, finishes at the end of day 9.
So on day 9, everything is ready for the split. Let's trace the first branch, the design track. That's D, then F.
Okay, Task D, which is 6 days, can start on day 9, so its earliest finish is day 15. Then Task F, which is 8 days, can start on day 15. Its earliest finish is day 23.
Day 23. Okay, now let's go back and trace the other branch, the procurement track. E, then G. It also starts after day 9.
Right. Task E, 7 days, starts on day 9. Its earliest finish is day 16. Then Task G, 2 days, starts on day 16. Its earliest finish is day 18.
Okay, so now we're at the merge point. The design track finishes on day 23, the procurement track finishes on day 18, and the final task, Task H, can't start until both of them are done.
And that's the key. H has to wait for the latest predecessor. It has to wait for Task F to finish on day 23.
So Task H starts on day 23, it takes 1 day, and the entire project finishes at the end of day 24.
And there you have it. The project duration is 24 days. And the sequence of tasks that determine that duration was A, then B, then C, then D, then F, then H. That is your critical path.
Any delay to any one of those specific tasks will delay the entire project.
1 for 1. A 1-day delay on Task F means a 1-day delay to the project completion.
Okay, so that's half the battle. Now we have to identify the float, that cushion you mentioned. This requires doing a backward pass, right? Starting from the end date and working backward.
We can do it implicitly. We know the tasks on the critical path have 0 float, by definition. So Task F must finish by day 23. That's its latest finish.
But what about the other path, the procurement path? We know Task G only needed to be done by day 18, but the project can wait until day 23 for it.
Exactly. So Task G's latest finish is day 23. Since it takes 2 days, its latest start is day 21. Following that back, Task E's latest finish is day 21. Since it's a 7-day task, its latest start is day 14.
So let's look at Task E. We calculated its earliest start was day 9, and now we know its latest start is day 14. The difference between those two is the float.
LS minus ES. 14 minus 9 is 5 days. That procurement track has 5 days of total float.
That one calculation is incredibly powerful from a management perspective. It means if the owner is 3 days late making their equipment selections for Task E, nothing happens at the final deadline.
Nothing. You just burned 3 of your 5 days of float. You document it, you note the risk has increased, but you don't have to panic or throw resources at it. You have a buffer.
It tells you where to focus your attention. A problem on Task F, the CD set, on the critical path, is that it's a 5-alarm fire. A problem on Task E, with 5 days of float. It's a concern, but you have time to manage it.
And it dictates your recovery strategy. If that client comes to you and says, I need you to finish this project 4 days earlier, the CPM tells you that spending any money to speed up Task E or G is a complete waste. They have float. The only way to shorten the project is to shorten the tasks on the critical path, D or F.
It turns resource allocation from guesswork into a science.
It really does.
Yeah.
It also lets you spot near critical paths, a path that only has 1 or 2 days of float. You have to watch those almost as closely because any small slip and they become critical themselves.
So understanding that path really drives every decision you make when things go wrong. Let's talk more about those recovery decisions. There are 2 key terms here that get tested all the time: crash versus fast track.
Right, and they are not the same thing. Crashing is about adding resources to reduce the duration of a critical task. It's brute force.
So if Task D, the DDD set, takes 6 days and is on the critical path, crashing it means putting 2 extra people on it and paying overtime to get it done in 4 days.
Exactly. The sequence of tasks stays the same, you just muscle through one of them faster. It costs more money, but it's generally a lower risk way to gain time.
Okay, so crashing is spending money. What is fast tracking?
Fast tracking is about increasing risk. You are changing the project's logic by overlapping tasks that were supposed to happen sequentially.
Give me an example.
A classic one is starting to pour the foundation before the structural steel design is 100% complete and signed off. You're betting that the final 10% of the design won't change the foundation requirements.
A huge bet.
A huge bet. You save time by overlapping the activities, but if that bet is wrong and a column footing needs to change, the cost of rework is astronomical. Fast tracking is what you do when the schedule is everything, and cost is secondary, but it requires a massive increase in management and coordination.
And any of these decisions, to crash, to fast track, to accept a delay, they all have to be documented. Which brings us back to that critical documentation checklist.
Yes. When an owner fails to make a decision on time, the only professional response is to issue that written decision log and schedule impact notice. It's not about being difficult, it's about fulfilling your standard of care. You are documenting the dependency. We cannot complete A because you have not provided B. It establishes the factual cause of the delay and protects the firm from liability.
Let's also clarify the architect's role during construction. During CA, we are not the contractor's scheduler. What is our responsibility to schedule?
We are only responsible for scheduling our own contractual obligations. That means primarily our submittal review durations. If the contract says we have 10 business days to review a submittal, we schedule that. We also schedule our involvement in key commissioning and closeout milestones.
So we are scheduling our response times.
Our response times. We should never, ever try to schedule the contractor's means and methods, how they sequence their trades when the concrete trucks arrive. That is their domain, their liability.
This whole conversation about rigor and professional responsibility really leads us to an ethical question. What happens when the pressure to win a job conflicts with the professional duty to create a realistic schedule?
The classic scenario. You're in a proposal meeting and the client says, I need a really aggressive permit date. I know it's tight, but come on, everyone pads their schedules. Just give me the date I need to win the job.
The pressure is immense. You want the project. What's the standard of care response?
It is a hard line. You can never ethically commit to a date that you know requires compromising public health, safety, and welfare. And that's what you're doing if you agree to a schedule that eliminates time for proper consultant coordination, code review, or quality control.
Because you're knowingly building foreseeable errors into the process.
Foreseeable errors that could become life safety issues in the final building, or at the very least, costly change orders for the owner. It is ethically and legally unsound.
So the ethical move is actually to use the schedule as a tool for transparency.
That's it exactly. You provide a defensible schedule with all your assumptions laid bare. Realistic review times, known city backlogs. And then, if the client still wants to go faster, you show them what it would take. You say, okay, to hit that date, we need to add these additional services for crashing, or you, Mr. Owner, need to formally accept these specific risks associated with fast tracking. The schedule becomes the tool you use to define your ethical boundaries.
Wow. Okay, this has been an incredibly deep and practical look at project scheduling. Let's try to distill this down. If you're listening and you remember nothing else from our deep dive today, what are the key takeaways?
I'd say there are 4. First, the 3 languages are essential. Use Milestones for the promise to the client, Gantt for the day-to-day plan, and CPM to understand the unchangeable dependency truth.
Right tool for the right audience.
Second, always remember you are managing the handoffs. A project schedule is fundamentally about coordinating the intersections between those 5 parallel lanes of work.
It's not just about your lane.
It's never just about your lane. Third, if a task on your CPM analysis has 0 float, you have to treat it like it's on life support. It gets maximum attention, maximum resources. It is the project's heartbeat.
And finally,
document the dependency chain. When a date moves, your professional standard, your duty, is to document why, notify the stakeholders, and update the baseline. Always show the cause and effect.
that rigor is really what provides control. It's how you turn what feels like a chaotic, unpredictable process into something structured and manageable.
And that actually leads to my final thought for you tonight. We spent a lot of time on the mechanics of CPM, the forward pass, the backward pass, but I want you to step back from the math and think about the managerial insight it gives you. The true value of a schedule, a really good CPM schedule, isn't really about predicting the exact finish date months in advance. It's almost impossible. Its real, profound value is that it reveals exactly where your risks are concentrated.
It's a risk map.
It is a risk map. If you go back to your desk tomorrow and run even a simple CPM network for your current project, you will instantly see the 2 or 3 sequences of tasks that control everything. You will know with mathematical certainty where your focus, your energy, and your money must go, and where you have a little bit of flexibility.
Hmm.
The critical path isn't just a calculation. It's the ultimate risk management guide that should define your focus as a professional.